you're looking for. Only the best. Welcome back anytime.
Damn it, I misspent my gold. Oh well, I'll bring bandages back. That's fine, doesn't matter.
I had what you're looking for. Deal. Nice talking to you. Let me show you. Only please come again.
Is that a bear? That guy was trailing like a bear? Some kind of tamer type? Hit him. Oh, it was bloody and scary, but I got it. Tense. Tense, kitty. Tense. Oh. Fucking tense, kitty. Tense. Tense. I'm sorry, kitty. Don't hear that. Man. Maybe I don't know. Like, I don't think these skills that I bought, I don't think they're as good as being able to just pull out. Like 100 points gets you 100 spear, and it's nice to be able to just pull out and fight them. I might pull 50 points out of yeah, because spears is an easy book to learn, and I could just put another 70 points in spears. I could just go put another book in. Spears. Dump out 50 points and all of these abilities. I think I kind of went crazy. If I look at archery, range combat. Yeah, we could call all of these down to 70 and buy like 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 points out of that and put it in spear. And 70 points in spear would be pretty good. I mean, I don't know. No, because they just block all the time. I remember why I did this, because it's like, I want to get skillful at just like getting damage out that I need to get out. Look, I'm backing in and I can fight them again. I like the health ability and spamming Q when I'm full. The fights are fucking nasty. Where are their corpses? Oh, there we go. Okay, trying to get bandits. Yeah, enter. Nope. Enter game. Yep. Motherfuck, it's hard to hit them. Oh, you can't shoot through the hole. It's a healer. Oh, headshot. I got it. It hurt, but I got it. Oh, Caster. Killed him. I feel like Legolas. Fucking tense. But I got it. Good kitty, good kitty. I hit him. I did hit him. I knocked him. Wait, I want the deer. I want to kill him. Killed him. Good boy, good boy. Good kitty, good kitty. Okay, good boy. I think the kitty likes this game because the vibe is kind of low. Okay, that was 5 out of the 25, 1/5 of the way done. I'm gonna go back in feeling like, you know, that I kind of persevere past the death and really did pretty well here. I pulled in 50 gold and some clade and got further towards another clade, you know, getting on all that clade up. I think I log here. Yeah. There's not much else to do tonight in any of the games. I think I played all the games I wanted to play. There was somebody on a horse. Pass by. I like the house. The house definitely adds to the RP for me. I want to buy a priest. Wait, that didn't work. Well, why not? I can't add more items here. I can't add more items here. I can't add more items here. What do you mean can't add more items here? You can't add more items here. Uh-oh. What about here in the chest? Can I do it here? You can't add more items here. I don't know what that means. What does that mean? So if I take out things like these wall candles, can I put helmets away? Yes, but I can't. I've hit a whole base limit, I think is what it is actually. And all these boxes. Okay, so anything that's trivial should go, I guess. I didn't know. The helmets aren't really worth anything. I need a vendor is what I need. I need a vendor out here somehow. I want to go shopping in Fab. Soft armor increased to 1. Sorry, kitty. And the armor is worthless. Yeah, I believe I will make my dinner, I guess, actually, is what I will do. And then I will fight more bandits with the pig. So I will sit down and put my dinner on to cook. I'll be right back. Oh, I'm sorry, kitty. I gotta go do something. Gotta get up. Sorry. Sorry about that, kitty. Excuse me. My back's out. Okay, so. Like that sound, don't you, kitty? Oh, I hope the kitty likes the sound. Are you happy? There you go. I don't know if you want it. Is that a happy kitty? That's a happy kitty. Yeah, it's a happy kitty. Now, I will eventually need that. There we go. Okay, time to shoot some more bandit while my dinner cooks. Oh, headshot, bitch. Oh. Watch this, I can just run inside. He can have the loot, I don't care about that. Yoinks, and I'm free. Now I watch him from my tall tower. Was fun. I don't want to fight him. I know I'll get some murder charge or something. There he is on his horse. He's moving. I wish the windows weren't so foggy. Couldn't you make clear windows? I still like that I can see from safety. Good job, pig. No death, no disgrace. That's weird. This was off screen for some reason. I was like, why can't I see what time it is? BRB and deal with my dinner. Pretty good. Pretty good. Okay, maybe 3 more minutes and my dinner will be ready. And then I will eat and go to bed. It's like, oh, is it a player? No, it's a deer. I hate the cloudy windows. Game needs binoculars. Okay, my dinner's probably done. Okay, BRB. Okay. This is ready. Let's do it. That one a bit fried. Perfect. Minecraft. Reminds me of Minecraft a lot. Okay. So, you make sure you don't log because I'm going to go shoot more bandit after I eat. But let's watch something while I eat. Master Fraud, that's tearing America apart. Death of my favorite video game series. South Park humiliated Trump. Let's watch this.
South Park humiliated Trump, Kristi Noem, and ICE, but reaction this time just exposed a lot. The Trump ICE raids, including these new ones getting caught on camera, are getting worse, with the craziest yet to come. And the big push to let 16-year-olds vote in elections has everyone divided. We're talking about all of that and even more on today's brand new Philip DeFranco show. You daily dive into the news, starting with this. South Park just humiliated the Trump administration again. Though this time it was less about Trump himself and more people in his orbit. But also it even started before the episode aired last night, or because the Department of Homeland Security tried to use South Park as a way to promote itself, posting a still of the episode's teaser where ICE agents descended upon South Park with the caption, join.ice.gov. But then South Park ratioing the government commenting, wait, so we are relevant? Hashtag eat a bag of dicks. With that, of course, referencing the White House last month responding to the first episode where they said, the show hasn't been relevant for over 20 years and is hanging on by a thread with uninspired ideas and a desperate attempt for attention. But really, whatever you think about South Park, they have people's attention. And they got it again last night on an episode that focused on the elementary school counselor, Mr. Mackey, where he loses his job because what the Trump administration is doing to schools, and because he needs money, he joins ICE for its large salary. And as they're mocking the low quality of people being allowed in to ICE, we are introduced to Trump's DHS Secretary, Kristi Noem. And over the course of the episode, they really lean into mocking aspects of why she's been called ICE Barbie, where everything seems to be for a photo shoot or a video. People are having to constantly put on makeup, inject stuff, just keep her face from falling off, which literally it does fall off. But in addition to that, they really lean into the dog controversy with Kristi Noem, which, in case you forgot, she once told and defended a story about how she shot and killed her own dog because it was untrainable. And over the course of the episode, she just shoots dog after dog in the face. She even snipes crypto, and as the credits run, she shoots up a dog store. And then as far as their critique of ICE, you have the new recruits loading into trucks for the first ICE raid. You have an agent advising them, keep your hands and feet inside the vehicle at all times, like at the Disneyland ride. They raid a Dora the Explorer live show. ICE even later raids Heaven, with Noem reminding her agents if it's brown, it goes down. And then, separate from that, they included J.D. Vance this week as a pint-sized babyface sycophant whom Trump calls annoying and stupid. With Trump even kicking Vance off screen at one point like he's a football, but the VP loyally returning to his side as if nothing happened. And then separate Separate from the administration itself, South Park made fun of Charlie Kirk and Charlie Kirk types, right? Rage bait, influencer debate bros. With Cartman at one point, who's taken on this role, saying, these young college girls are totally unprepared, so I can just destroy them and also edit out the ones that actually argue back well. It just feels so good. And then, notably, as far as the reactions to this week we saw some of the people portrayed in South Park trying to roll with it. With Charlie Kirk saying the whole thing's awesome, he found it hilarious. JD Vance also seemingly taking that angle, saying, well, I finally made it, which, seems to be a drastically different reaction than from the first episode, where you had the White House going, they're not even relevant, and reports coming out that the real president was reportedly seething. And of course, all of this, it's playing out as South Park has now 48 more episodes to go with their new contract, with them seemingly set up to be a fixture of political discourse for a while. And then, next up in the news today, we've got to talk about ICE's latest controversial and likely illegal raid, the agency's massive recruitment campaign, a key new court battle in the White House's war on non-citizen students, and the president's most recent effort to gain more seats in Congress by any means necessary. Starting with that raid, which involved masked, heavily armed ICE agents jumping out of a rental truck and ambushing people at an LA Home Depot. Because if you've ever been to a Home Depot, immigrant day laborers gather outside looking for work, which is why they've become such a big target of Trump's immigration enforcement. Here, you had a worker saying that a rental truck pulled up to the parking lot at around 6:45 in the morning, the driver telling people in Spanish that he had work to offer. But then someone rolls up the back of the truck and ICE pours out, chasing and arresting anyone they can. And you actually had a Fox News correspondent publishing footage from inside the truck. That reposted by a Border Patrol commander in California who called it Operation Trojan Horse. If he seems familiar to you, that's because he's been previously accused of misleading the public, saying of an immigration sweep that his agents had a predetermined list of targets, many with criminal records. Then records later showed that 77 out of 78 people detained had no prior record with the agency, with there being frequent reports of people just being targeted by ICE based on their appearance and whether they spoke Spanish, which is why you end up having Latino U.S. citizens getting swept up in raids. It also led to a federal judge ordering the Trump administration to halt indiscriminate immigration stops and arrests in 7 California counties, including Los Angeles last month, with a judge writing in her order that there was a mountain of evidence that federal immigration enforcement tactics were violating the Constitution. And in fact, last week, an appeals court upheld her ruling. And so the big question with this Home Depot raid is whether it violated the original order. Now there you have DHS claiming that the agents arrested 16 undocumented people from Guatemala, Mexico, Honduras, and Nicaragua. And notably, they didn't answer questions about their tactics or whether agents have been looking for specific people. So in response, you had a spokesperson for one California-based rights group saying, it is deeply disturbing that the federal government will stoop to these levels to continue their campaign of terror against working Angelenos. Saying these are Angelenos looking for an honest day's living. What we see in the video looks like an assault on people's liberties, an assault on individuals that were standing there looking for a job in a targeted operation that was in fact lawless. Right, and all of this it's not a random one-off. You've got the head of another Southern California nonprofit claiming that Border Patrol agents seem to be making the same rounds again, saying they're hitting the same places that they hit in the past, but with new tactics, including pretending to be employers to lure people in. And you even had the rental truck company Penske chiming in, saying they're aware of what happened and Penske strictly prohibits the transportation of people in the cargo areas of its vehicles under any circumstances, saying the company was not made aware that its trucks would be used in today's operation and did not authorize this. And finally, saying they'd reach out to DHS to reinforce its policy to avoid improper use of its vehicles in the future. But that then brings us to the second thing here, and that is that if you are over 40 and you're interested in potentially breaking the law and terrorizing local communities, I've got great news for you. DHS is now waiving age limits on joining ICE, with that being just one part of a new campaign to massively expand their ranks. Campaign, remember, that's coming after Trump's mega bill funneled an unprecedented $170 billion.
Oh no, they're gonna hire all the freaks.
That more than 80,000 Americans
they're building the
SS.
SS.
1 week since it launched the new recruitment drive, with people being drawn in with an offer of up to a $50,000 signing bonus, student loan repayment assistance, and other benefits. As far as the age requirements, it used to be that candidates to be criminal investigators, with limited exceptions, couldn't be older than 37 years old, and deportation officers couldn't be over 40. But now, they don't care, assuming that you meet the other limited requirements, with DHS actually announcing it by posting this, saying we're taking father-son bonding to a whole new level. To which you saw certain things play out, like someone responding saying drop the degree requirement and let the good old boys in. Think I can handle a little discomfort and taking down illegals, don't need a degree for that. To which DHS proudly responded, no college degree required to be a deportation officer. Which actually, that brings us to the third thing that I want to talk about, and that is that some people in the process of getting their degrees are now suing the Trump administration. Right? It's about free speech and censorship. With Stanford University's student newspaper, the Stanford Daily, saying in their lawsuit that several of the newspaper's writers have been forced to self-censor or quit the paper out of fear that the government would retaliate for what it publishes, claiming that it's received a number of requests from lawfully present non-citizens to have their names, quotes, or photos removed from articles, that many international students have stopped speaking to the paper's journalists altogether. And notably, this new lawsuit is somewhat similar to a case that just went to trial in Boston last month. And there you had people, including the American Association of University Professors, suing the Trump administration over what they called its ideological deportation policy that's led to several students fleeing the country or going into hiding to avoid arrest. And several students and academics testifying about how they'd scrubbed their social media profiles, censored their speech, and turned down opportunities out of fear. Even had members of the Trump administration testifying, including a Homeland Security agent belonging to the unit normally tasked with tackling drug, financial, and other crimes, with him explaining how he was told by the State Department to prioritize the arrest of Rumeysa Ozturk, a Tufts University student from Turkey with no criminal record who once wrote an op-ed critical of Israel. And he said that he was explicitly told not to inform her that her visa had been revoked. But I'll add, while a ruling there is expected this month, the Stanford case is also a little bit different. It goes further than others that have targeted the student arrests. We're taking aim at the constitutionality of the underlying legal argument that the Trump administration has relied on to arrest and try to deport foreign students. It revolves around two key provisions in the Immigration and Nationality Act. The first allows the Secretary of State to deport non-citizens if the Secretary personally determines that the alien's admission would compromise a compelling United States foreign policy interest. And the second gives the Secretary the power to revoke a visa or documentation at his or her discretion. The lawsuit says that invoking the power in response to speech is a clear violation of the First Amendment, with the complaint saying Marco Rubio and the Trump administration are trying to turn the inalienable human right of free speech into a privilege contingent upon the whims of a federal bureaucrat, furthering deportation proceedings against non-citizens residing lawfully in this country for their protected political speech regarding American and Israeli foreign policy. But as far as the government's response to it, a spokesperson for DHS calling the lawsuit baseless, saying there is no room in the United States for the rest of the world of terrorist sympathizers, and we are under no obligation to admit them or let them stay here. But then all of that brings us to the final thing that I want to talk about in this section, and that is that Trump is trying to keep undocumented immigrants off the U.S. Census, with him posting that a new and highly accurate census will be based on modern-day facts and figures, and importantly, using the results and information gained from the presidential election of 2024 and data. People who are in our country illegally will not be counted in the census. And notably, this is not the first time that Trump has tried this. During his first term, he moved to add a citizenship question to the census, but a federal appeals court ruled the move was illegal, and the Supreme Court ultimately blocked it. But a key thing there is that the Supreme Court declined to explicitly rule on whether people without legal status can be excluded by the president from counts. And that is, Article 1 of the Constitution is required a census every 10 years to determine the number and distribution of seats in the House of Representatives. And the 14th Amendment separately requires the whole number of persons in each state to be included in the census. The key word being persons, not citizens, so it's going to be interesting to see what sort of legal argument they try to use in this case. And then I've got more news for you in just a minute, but okay, honest question, how many brilliant ideas are just rotting away in your notes app right now? 'Cause somewhere in that dusty graveyard of someday ideas lies your side hustle or maybe your next new thing. So why not make today the day that you commit to take that first step in taking on that opportunity or that passion project and take it to the next level? You know, for me, it was my on again, off again book club. I had put it off forever. And I kid you not, like the DeFranco book club went from someday to launched in under an hour with today's sponsors, Squarespace. They make it crazy easy to build a site to start selling content, courses, physical or digital products, or really do almost anything that you have in mind. You know, whether you want to just showcase something or you want to charge a one-time fee or offer a subscription. And they've got stunning templates that look like you hired a designer, and their Fluid Engine editor, it lets you drag, drop, customize, no coding, no stress, no excuses. Even my team uses Squarespace for our Daily Dip newsletter where tens of thousands of you guys get your PDS fix in your inbox every day. New polls, giveaways, PDF show notes, it's all run through Squarespace. And like clockwork, a Daily Dip issue went out today and your project could be next. So hey, take that first step today for the free trial at squarespace.com/Phil or scan that QR code. Right, make today launch day. Just make sure that when it's ready to go, use code Phil to get 10% off and let them know we sent you. And then the FBI is now going to hunt down the Texas Democrats who fled the state to stop the Republicans from rigging the election. And so the biggest questions here are on what grounds, with what authority, and what crime is the FBI investigating? If it was illegal to leave Texas, Ted Cruz would be on death row by now. The FBI can't just use its vast surveillance powers to spy on and locate random citizens. Texas issued a civil warrant, not a criminal one. The feds have no role here. So you've got people asking, is the FBI going to violate the sovereignty of Illinois and the rights of Texas Democrats because the president told them to? Now with that, you had Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker saying that he will not allow the FBI to take the Texas Democrats. So I'm saying if the Trump administration...
They're grandstanding. There literally is no federal law applicable to this situation. None. FBI agents might show up, whether it's federal agents coming to Illinois or state rangers from Texas. If you haven't broken federal law, you're basically unwelcome, and there's no way that they can be that our state legislators here, the Texas state legislators, can be arrested.
And while J.B. Pritzker is correct there, you also have people saying, you know, this is an administration that is in total violation of the Constitution at all times. So for now, we're going to have to continue to have eyes on this and see how it plays out. And then, next up in the news, we should talk about how Apple's Tim Cook has emerged as a very interesting person to watch amidst Trump's tariff chaos. Because if you didn't see, Apple's investing another $100 billion to expand operations in the United States as Trump is threatening 100% tariffs on semiconductors for tech companies who don't follow suit. You had Trump and Tim Cook making the announcement in the Oval Office yesterday where Cook gifted Trump with this weird glass and 24-karat gold trophy. With that just being the latest effort from Apple to appease Trump and shift some small specific parts of the manufacturing process stateside in order to avoid Trump's threat of tariffs on iPhones. Because earlier this year, Apple said that it planned to spend $500 billion in the United States over the next 4 years in order to hire 20,000 people as well as open a factory in Texas. Though notably with that, one, only about $39 billion of the $500 billion previously announced in February was new. The rest was actually just in line with the company's average annual increase in U.S. investment to support its growth since 2017. And two, the company made similar smaller pledges during the Biden administration and Trump's first term and has yet to actually follow through on some of them. And that is, even with it, there's no sign that it would actually ever meet Trump's demand to make iPhones in the States. I mean, it's possible, but it would be extremely expensive. One analysis finding that developing the workforce in the United States needed to move the supply chain here. It would force the company to more than double the iPhone price. We're talking at least $2,000. Still, I mean, what we're saying is that Apple and Tim Cook, they
No! Not
in addition
again.
to Cook giving Trump a little trophy, they complemented each other yesterday, though in different ways.
Again. God
Thank you
damn it.
very much for having me here today. You've been a great advocate for American innovation and manufacturing. I'm grateful for your leadership and your commitment.
I want to thank Tim Cook. He's a great man, a visionary, a businessman, just about every quality you can have other than athleticism. I don't know about that.
Trump, he's setting Apple up as an example of what he expects from everyone else. Trump threatening to impose a 100% tariff on foreign semiconductors for other tech companies unless they also commit to increase manufacturing in the States. So there, a big key thing is that it seems like a lot of the biggest companies already would be exempt. For the world's largest maker of chips, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, they announced plans to invest $100 billion in U.S. manufacturing in March. You also had an official and parliamentary briefing in Taipei saying that the company would be exempt. Also, South Korea's top trade envoy said similar things about Samsung and another major company saying they wouldn't be subject to the tariff. And then finally, Nvidia, which is one of the largest chip makers in the US, it would also likely be exempt from the tariff because the company has manufacturing facilities in the US. But I will say a chip maker that Donald Trump is not a fan of right now is Intel. So that seems less to do with manufacturing and more to do with who's running things. So Trump today writing on Truth Social, the CEO of Intel is highly conflicted and must resign immediately. Right in there, the CEO is Lip Bhutan, and with that, you had outlets like Semaphore noting his post came a day after Republican Senator Tom Cotton sent an open letter to Intel's board raising questions about Tom's connections to semiconductor firms that are allegedly linked to the Chinese government and military. But all in all, I'll say regarding manufacturing and tariffs, this could be a very interesting thing to watch in the coming months and years, especially as his global tariffs kick today, and he's been making threats here and there, including with India. Then, last up today, let's talk about some news that actually one of you beautiful bastards was asking about.
Well, I heard the UK is thinking about lowering the voting age to 16, and it got me thinking, wasn't our country founded on the idea of no taxation without representation? Aren't 16-year-olds encouraged even to go out and work jobs and pay those taxes? So if you pay taxes, I think you should vote.
I will say that's probably one of the strongest arguments I've heard made for it, though I'm not sold. For those who don't know anything about this, the UK has recently lowered its voting age in general elections from 18 to 16. And that actually came as part of a larger package of changes that were meant to strengthen British democracy and help restore trust in politics. Because last year, the UK saw its lowest turnout in the national election in 2 decades. And this new change, it's the biggest shift to the UK electorate since the voting age was dropped from 21 to 18 back in 1969. And it brings England and Northern Ireland in line with Scotland and Wales, where 16-year-olds can already vote in the local council elections as well as for Scottish Parliament. Right now, as you'd expect, there are people that are for and against this. For the argument in support, you have people echoing Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who said they're old enough to go out to work, they're old enough to pay taxes. If you pay in, you should have the opportunity to say what you want your money spent on, which way the government should go. But then you have those against it arguing at the very least it's inconsistent, saying that 16-year-olds are not allowed to drink, buy a lottery ticket, get married, or go to war. But then a more general argument is that they just don't have enough lived experience. So then also, in addition to that debate, you have people wondering, will this actually change? Doubting that actually giving them the ability to vote is going to mean that 16 and 17-year-olds show up at the polls. So you've got some experts suggesting things like beefing up the citizenship curriculum or expanding the provision of volunteering programs at schools. Now with this, I do need to know that it still needs parliamentary approval, but considering that this was a big part of Starmer's election campaign, I mean, it gives him a very large majority. And as far as us actually seeing the impact, it's probably not going to be until maybe 2029, but that's when the next general election's expected. You know, as far as the reaction to this, as far as like, what does the polling say? Very interestingly, with a recent ITV News poll of 516 and 17-year-olds in the UK, finding that 49% of them didn't think that they should be able to vote, while 51% did. And then there's the general polling, which saw a much wider difference, with 57% of respondents saying 16 and 17-year-olds shouldn't vote, and 32% saying they should. But then the remaining 11% remaining neutral or saying they didn't know. And then actually, you know, extending this beyond the UK, you have them now going to short and growing amounts of countries allowing teenagers to vote, including Austria, Brazil, Cuba, Ecuador, Greece, and Armenia. You know, bringing your question back around, Brandon, about whether this is going to be coming to the US, I don't know. I don't think so, at least not soon. Roughly a third of the states in the US actually allow 17-year-olds to vote in primaries if they're going to be 18 by the time the general elections roll around. And about a dozen cities allow people who are as young as 16 to vote in school board elections or local elections. But as far as like on the national level, I don't think that it's there. Or there have actually been Democratic lawmakers who have introduced legislation to lower the voting age, but there's been no success there. We even saw a Hill-Harris X poll ask this question back in 2019, with 75% of registered voters at the time saying no to 17-year-olds voting, and a whopping 84% saying no to 16-year-olds. And having not thought about it a ton, I'm not quick to jump at it, but I do think your point of if you're being taxed, there's an argument to be had of you should have a say. I think that there's something there. Then the counterpoint to that, and it is completely anecdotal, I am going to stress that. I just think back to how fucking stupid I was when I was 16, and I'm like, I don't know if I want that guy voting. But there have been studies that show that the younger we allow citizens to vote, the more likely they are to retain that habit of voting. So for the time being, I don't want to cop out here. I want to give you an answer. For the time being, my answer is I think I'm against it, for my mind to be changed on. Which is then why I'm going to pass the question out to y'all. What do you think about dropping the voting age to 16? For it? Are you against it? Why? Why not? I'd love to hear it. But that, my friends, is the end of today's show.
I'm for it.
This weekend, actually on Saturday morning, I got a video for you. I'm tinkering around with a few things as far as Friday, Saturday, Sunday stuff. So definitely look out for that. But no matter what, I'll see you right back here on Monday. Stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and I'll see you soon.
After 15 long years of dreaming about the release of the 4th EA Skate game, we now have it, and it's another soulless, Fortnite-modeled microtransaction scam disguised as a video game. The EA Skate franchise entirely redefined what skateboarding games
that's
should
what
feel
EA
like.
is.
Most fans look back on them as a near-perfect trilogy,
Tony Hawk.
so it was almost
Nope, not
impossible to
perfect.
match expectations. But the developers of this game got away with a slimy tactic. They framed the rebirth of this game as a way to give back to the fans, and that they were going to use our feedback and requests as the main driver for what this game would look and feel like. But they were lying. Fans made very simple requests. We want a story mode, the ability to skate offline by yourself, Hall of Meat. Hell, at least can we play an actual game of Skate? No. Almost all of the basic requests were outright ignored because they were never actually building this game for the Skate community. They were taking advantage of the Skate community, using nostalgia and goodwill as bait to slowly roll out a glorified mobile game that is going to beg you to spend money on overpriced aesthetics. The developers stripped everything from this franchise that was great and turned it into just another soulless cash grab. And since they don't care about the legacy of Skate, this video is going to make you realize just how badly this iconic franchise has been dragged through the mud, and how it's also a grim reminder of where the entire gaming industry is headed. Because if your favorite game franchise hasn't been ruined yet, just wait. It'll happen soon. When the very first EA Skate was announced, their promise was to be a reflection of real skateboarding culture, that raw, gritty, and rebellious nature that was highly overlooked in the mainstream. The mainstream image of skateboarding was largely shaped by the explosive success of the X Games, which debuted in 1995 and saw massive viewership by the early 2000s, with millions tuning in to watch skaters like Tony Hawk, who cemented his legacy by landing the first ever 900 at the 99 X Games. Skateboarding was transformed from an underground artistic lifestyle into a polished global sport. And I'm not demonizing the X Games. I think it was an incredibly important facet to grow interest around the world. It was undeniably sick to watch Danny Way launch himself over the Great Wall of China, or Bob Burnquist dominate vert ramps. But But it's no secret that the corporate sponsors and TV-friendly presentation didn't represent the vast majority of skateboarders, who were skating in the streets, shredding handrails behind supermarkets, getting kicked out of parking garages, filming video parts on camcorders, and running from security guards. What added to the mainstream interest was the success of the Tony Hawk Pro Skater video game franchise. The fast-paced gameplay, iconic soundtracks, and exaggerated trick mechanics are literally some of my earliest childhood memories. But the franchise was never designed to simulate skateboarding with realism. It leaned into an arcade-style gameplay where players could chain impossible combos, perform gravity-defying tricks, and grind on power lines. Each game was over-the-top and undeniably addicting. The first game sold over 350,000 units in just the first 2 months in North America, shipping a staggering 3 million copies worldwide by spring of 2000. Pro Skater 2 proved how dominant the game was when it broke the world record for the best-selling extreme sports video game in history, which sold over 2 million in the USA alone. As if that wasn't insane, it was beat out the very next year by Pro Skater 3, which is still the best-selling game of the series, selling over 7 million copies across all consoles to date. But things started to change when MTV became interested in skateboarding. They understood it wasn't just about acrobatic tricks, but the lifestyle and the culture behind it. They were crucial in introducing the rebellious nature of skateboarding to the mainstream. Ironically, it started with Jackass, which was a show about ridiculous stunts, pranks, wrecking your body, and laughing through the pain. But it was performed by mostly skateboarders and originally intended to just be funny cutaway scenes in between gnarly skate tricks. From there, MTV greenlit shows like Viva La Bam and Robin Big, who initially represented that skating counterculture. Bam transformed his house into what looked like a Tony Hawk video game map, and Rob would skate the streets with his bodyguard Big Black, whose job was to prevent other security guards from stopping Rob's sessions. Skateboarding had such a tight grip on the culture that MTV launched a show called Scarred, which didn't show insane tricks, but rather the exact opposite. Brutal bails, broken bones, and stunts that almost always ended in a trip to the hospital. Although the average person watched these MTV shows for the entertainment and chaos, it spoke to real skaters and aspiring skaters on a deeper level. Sure, the mega ramp is sick, but so is a backlip down a 10 stair, so is a blunt slide into the bank, or sometimes just a flowy driveway session rips harder than massive stunts. As these shows got more popular, street skating and the culture surrounding it became more interesting and entertaining than professional skating. And while the Tony Hawk franchise tried to capitalize on this movement aesthetically with games like Underground and American Wasteland, they had the same unrealistic, gravity-defying combos, but with a new texture. Then in 2007, EA Skate was announced, a game that promised it would not only look like realistic skating, but it would feel like realistic skating.
And that's where we started. How do we capture the experience of skateboarding? All the physical feel, the feeling of actually cracking an ollie, the feeling of doing those tricks and getting that sense of mastery. As fans of the Tony Hawk series, it was time to really bring the feeling of skateboarding out.
The first trailer they released embodies just how different this game was going to be. You didn't need to grind on power lines above a city. Just bombing a hill or hitting an 8 stair was exciting enough. It was about hearing the realistic sound effects of the wheels sliding on the concrete. It was about feeling the freedom of cruising in an open world. From the beginning, EA marketed Skate as a real skater's game, saying just like your real first time on the board feels a bit awkward at first, but with some practice, it opens up the more you play it. What made these trailers even more impactful was that they were being posted across YouTube at a time when most game studios were still relying on magazines or TV commercials. Black Box, the game's developers, leaned into the internet's growing skate community to spread the word. I have vivid memories of searching EA Skate updates on YouTube in 2007, and every day after school watching the same few videos over and over again, just dying to play this game. I was devastated to find out that they announced it would be exclusively released on next-generation consoles, which at the time was the Xbox 360 and PS3, and at that time I only had a PlayStation 2. So this was the first time that a game would be literally unavailable to me, and as much as it sucked, it kind of gave it this aura, like it was a new chapter for gaming. And it took months and months of begging, but ultimately I was able to convince my parents to buy me an Xbox 360 as well as Skate for Christmas in 2007. I still remember buying the console at Walmart, setting it up in my dad's living room, and sitting on the floor and staying up all night to play the game. Not to exaggerate, but it kind of changed my life. EA Skate actually introduced you and included real street skaters into the fabric of the story. You had P-Rod, Chris Cole, John Rattray, PJ Ladd, of course, Rob Dyrdek and Big Black. They even threw in real footage of real skaters and some cutscenes to remind you just how rad these dudes actually were. But easily, the most exciting new feature that Skate was introducing was their Flick It technology, which totally dismantled the button mashing style of the Tony Hawk series.
When you're playing the game, your left stick, that's your body. So you're steering left and right, pulling it back to get into power slides, push forward, your guy will crouch. And then your right stick, that controls your board. So I'm gonna pull back, crouch for a little bit to get ready for a big ollie, and then flick it forward. That's why it's called Flick It, because you do flick the stick forward. It's that simple. And off to the side, in our game, that'll give you a kick flip to actually get something out of whatever you do with the stick, including swinging it around to the side. And so crouching and then throwing it forward, however much force you put into it, that's what your ollie is. And you can also push forward and pop off the front to get ollies, and a whole combination of gestures to get all the different flip tricks that are out there.
Skate also introduced small details that felt realistic. You couldn't just land tricks from any height. If the gap was too high, it was impossible to land. You'd fall no matter how many times you tried if you didn't know the glitch. If you were going too fast, your board would wobble. It would be a lot harder to power slide if you were going too fast. You couldn't grind infinitely. You'd lose speed on rails and curbs if you didn't have enough momentum going into the trick. You could pump your body on vert ramps to gain speed just like a rail transition skater, not needing to push your board in between ramps. It was clear that the black box developers had consulted real skateboarders to depict the physics as accurately as possible while still giving it a video game feel. And even though they included the X Games and Mega Park where you could hit a mega ramp and get some big air, it kinda still felt limited to something Danny Way could do in real life. The map felt like a regular city that happened to have some sick skate spots. You had clean corporate plazas, dark and dirty alleyways, brand new skate parks, and decrepit old skate parks. A perfect mix to fit whatever vibe you were feeling that day. They also added pedestrians to make it feel real and occupied, although they added an extremely annoying feature where they would just kind of mill around wherever you were skating to get in the way. There were even banned locations where if you skated them, a security guard would chase you and try to knock you off your board, which created these tense moments where the pressure was on. And overall, they had this gritty aesthetic, with a vignette over the screen and a low camera angle to mimic a cameraman following you capturing your lines. But it wasn't just the controls, physics, and aesthetic that made Skate feel like real skateboarding. It was the challenges and career mode. Instead of cartoonish missions or collecting floating letters, Skate gave you the kind of goals that mirrored an actual skater's career. A photographer from Thrasher magazine would text you and challenge you to do a trick. He would snap a photo of you completing the trick and post it on the cover of their next magazine. You'd also be challenged to film lines for a fictional skate video, and you could also edit those video clips and upload them online for other players to see. Your videographer was essentially your right-hand man throughout the game, who was hyping you up whenever you landed something sick or holding you accountable if you were messing up. There were pool jams and tight bowls. They had intense downhill death races through city streets where dodging pedestrians and carving past cars felt like something straight out of a video. And last but certainly not least, you could play an actual game of Skate. For those who don't know, Skate is basically the same exact thing as horse in basketball. One person sets a trick, the other has to do the exact same trick, and if you don't, you get a letter. And the game ends when you spell out SKATE. The inclusion of the real-life version of Skate was a love letter to the culture. It felt like something skaters actually do because they do, and the developers knew that. As you completed missions, you would secure sponsorship deals with real skate brands like Lakai, Girl, and Plan B. You'd earn gear from those brands and ultimately build up your respect as a skater. And even if you weren't doing challenges, you were just casually skating around, you'd visualize and map out the trick line in your head and try to land it. You had to work for it, like a real skater did. And when you finally landed the trick, you felt accomplished. You weren't just mindlessly playing a game. Skate Skate made you think like a skater. For anyone who grew up skateboarding or watching skateboard videos, the media's representation of it always felt off. But this game got it right. After its release, even EA was shocked with how well it sold. Within its first few weeks, Skate had sold hundreds of thousands of copies, outselling its direct competitor, Tony Hawk's Proving Ground, nearly 2-1. Black Box wasn't just trying to steal some market share from the Tony Hawk franchise. They were legitimately trying to create a new approach to all action sports video games. And while it wasn't a perfect game, what it did have was soul. And after it captured the hearts of fans around the world, they would absolutely shock their community with the upgrades made in the sequel, Skate 2. Skate 2 is considered by die-hard fans to be the best in the series. It took everything that worked in the first game and just pushed it a little further. The controls were just a little smoother, the animations were just a little more accurate, and the map was just a little bigger. But it didn't lose any of the things that made the first game so great, well, besides the soundtrack. The second soundtrack is okay, it's good, it's solid, but the first game was too legendary to beat. The city of San Vanolona had changed after a massive earthquake, giving the map a more gritty, weathered feel.
My best friend likes
Skate.
Skate.
The character was much more noticeable.
I didn't.
Being dirty, bloody, and bruised.
But I love Tony Hawk 2 and 3. I thought those were really good.
Spillway
and
was
1's good for
we would spend hours ripping through this thing.
One's still a really good, genuinely good game, but it's a downhill skating game. 2 and 3 were good though.
One of the most celebrated features of Skate 2 was the ability to get off your board and move objects around. I can't tell you how many times I played Skate 1 and just thought, man, if I could just get off my board and walk up these stairs. This was an absolute game changer. You could now drag ramps, benches, rails, and pads into position to build your own lines or reconfigure iconic spots.
That is dope. I forgot about that, yeah.
It gave players more freedom and creativity than before, and it also helped the game last longer. If you got bored, you could start building your own spots. The career mode remained basically the same: magazine cover shoots, filming sick lines with real skaters like Eric Costin, Terry Kennedy, Jerry Hasu, but they also introduced the legendary Hall of Me, which was a hilarious and brutal challenge mode that rewarded players for intentionally wiping out in the most painful way possible. The online mode in Skate 2 was also a massive step forward. While the first game had limited multiplayer functionality, Skate 2 fully embraced the online skating community. Players could now join free skate lobbies with up to 6 people, where they could explore the city together, hit spots, and session lines just like real life. Now you could share your skating experience, vibing and cruising through the city with friends across the world. But this was still 2008 and 2009, where most people were still not used to or just overly expecting an online gameplay element. The vast majority of skate players' preference was to still play alone or taking turns on the controller with friends in real life. And I really want you all to just look at, digest, remember, and feel this Skate 2 aesthetic. Because after looking at all of these Skate 2 clips, the new game just looks like an absolute joke. The Skate franchise was now the standard for what a skateboarding video game should be like. And that was partially why the Tony Hawk series was starting to fall off. Skate 2 was an amazing sequel to an already amazing game, and it received strong reviews across nearly every major gaming publication. Skate 2 is technically an improvement over the first title, and anyone who hadn't yet played the original should skip it and go right to the second. It's a really fun game that allows you to play it the way you want with a control scheme that is second to none at the moment. Unfortunately, Skate 2 did not have as strong sales numbers. It didn't have as explosive numbers as the first edition. They were still okay, but they needed to make some big changes if they wanted to see financial success with Skate 3, even if it meant slightly abandoning their initial promise. If Tony Hawk Pro Skater represents totally unrealistic arcade-style skating, and Skate 1 represents more of a simulated reality, Skate 2 would be dead in the middle, and Skate 3 would be closer to Tony Hawk's arcade style. Skate 3 kinda did the opposite of what made it a breakout game in the first place, and leaned further into a more arcade-style gameplay. Firstly, the aesthetic felt a lot more cartoony. Everything was a little rounder, a little softer, softer. Your character would get dirty and bloody from falling, but it was nowhere near the grit and ruggedness of Skate 2. The new city, Port Carverton, was a stark contrast to the destroyed San Banalona. It was cleaner, brighter, less textured, more open, and most importantly, it felt perfect. In fact, the entire lore of the city changed. In Skate 2, skating was outlawed. In Skate 3, it was encouraged. Cops were gone, security was gone, and you were now skating in a world built for you. There's even a very believable conspiracy theory that you are actually dead in Skate 3, because in the beginning of the story mode, you're...
Okay, guys, this is a good natural place for me to stop. I want to say thank you for hanging out with me today. I had quite a lot of fun. Been a long session. Yeah, 12 hours and 45 minutes is a pretty good day. So, yeah, I haven't been able to work like this in a while. It makes me happy when I can do this. So, thank you so much for your time, guys. I'm going to bed now. I'm going to take my kitty and go cuddle in the bed. Yep. I wonder if I can log here and just come out to like loot. I wonder if it'll let me do it. I'll just try. Does it care where I log? Okay, all the games are shut down. I haven't taken a mission. Yeah. And now I will log. Okay, thank you so much for watching Skycat Live. I'm a full-time variety gamer all day, every day. Twitch, YouTube, give me a like, sub, or a follow, and I will stop the video here with a reminder that I have thousands of videos on my YouTube channel, which is reflected here. And I'm going to publish these videos. Oh, check's still running on that one. Oh, I don't know. I kind of doubt it. Reload. I don't know. Maybe it's glitched. I don't know. That one might be glitched. I don't really know. Anyways, we're going to upload here and go live. Now. Sorry, I'm going to